Hi, I'm Mrs. Osmond, and this is Mr. Harvey, and, and we're two of your on-level chemistry teachers at Walton. We're going to talk today about what this is and what we do with it.
Okay, this is our lab table, but we need to know what's in the lab table and what kind of equipment do we have here. So, what do we got that's metal in here?
Ah, metal. Great question. Okay, we keep all the metal items in the cabinet. Each side of the bench has its own cabinet, and we have some pretty nifty things in here.
Wait a minute, Miss Osmond, are you trying to tell me that I'm not supposed to ask you every single lab where the metal stuff is? Am I supposed to know that all the metal stuff is in there and what kind of stuff is in there?
Yes, you are, Mr. Harvey.
Sounds like a plan.
Okay, so we have the wire gauze that we use when we use our, get it here, when we use our iron ring. We set the wire gauze on our iron ring to hold a beaker to heat it over a Bunsen burner.
So, you mean I don't just take a beaker and stick it right through the middle of here like this?
No.
Looks pretty dangerous to me.
Yeah.
All right, so.
It's a good way to break something.
So basically, most of this stuff has some sort of safety factor to it, huh?
Yeah, it's to protect you when you're doing laboratory
And
experiments.
who's responsible for safety?
Everybody's. Okay. Next we have a Bunsen burner striker. This striker generates a spark.
And for some reason, a lot of people have a hard time using this. You want to take this and don't just move it back and forth, you want to twist it. See? Back and forth, not much twist, lots of sparks. Lots of sparks, light it up. So if you're doing this 20 times and nothing's happening, you're doing it wrong. So twist it.
Okay, Mr. Harvey, now we know not to play with the strikers
Don't
because
play with it because you wear that little flint out right there. See that? It gets worn out, and then you can strike it all day long and it's not going to produce anything.
see, this one has worn out, so we're going to have to replace this. But the other thing I noticed is we have two strikers in this container, and we're not supposed to. So somebody put the striker back in the wrong cabinet. So every time you use your equipment, you need to be sure and put it back in the place where you found it.
Exactly.
Okay, let's see, next we have a test tube holder, and we just press on it and it opens up and we put the test tube in. We'll grab a test tube and then we release it and it holds the test tube for us. We can use this when we're heating over a Bunsen burner.
Most of the stuff in this cabinet allows us to handle hot instruments without burning ourselves, and when it's something relatively large, so we're never going to ask you to handle hot glassware with your hands. See? And this bad boy is called hot hands. See? So you pick up something relatively large with it.
It's a nice hot pad. This is a set of beaker tongs. It's got some black rubber here. You use these to pick up hot beakers. Say if you were using this glass beaker here and you wanted to take it off the burner, you would put those there and then you could move glassware with them. One of the nice things about these lab benches is these are called epoxy countertops, and they can take very, very, very high temperatures, so you can put hot glassware and hot metalware on them at any time.
Notice what I'm doing. If you're not using something, if you're not in the process of using it for a lab, it shouldn't be out on the counter. Okay? So when we do labs, you don't just take everything out and scatter it all over the place. You find out what we're going to use, you take it out, and then you make sure you put your stuff back in the drawer that you were assigned.
Or the cabinet. This is called a scopula. We use this for weighing out chemicals, massing out chemicals, excuse me. You just reach into the container, take some out, and put it on the electronic balance. And what else do we have, Mr. Harvey? Ah, the test tube brush. Test tube brush for cleaning our test tubes. Our other tongs, these are called crucible tongs, and they're made for handling hot crucibles, which is something that we'll demonstrate when we get to the point where we would be using them. We do not keep crucibles in the lab bench.
Okay, now everything looks like it's made out of metal here.
That is correct.
Where's all the glass stuff?
Okay, let's put this away. Oh, you know, the other thing we forgot though, Mr. Harvey, before we do glass, is we keep a plastic test tube rack down here because it won't fit in the drawer. And also this is where you'll find your Bunsen burner and hose. All right, so all of that is in the cabinet. Glassware, all glassware is kept in the glassware drawer because if you put it in the metal cabinet, it will break. So,
Okay, let me ask you a question.
Yes.
How are the students supposed to know what's in the glassware drawer?
Excellent question. If we bring the camera over here and I'll pull some of the glassware out, you can see that we have a kind of like a map in here that shows the description of each piece of glassware and how many of each one you should have. So let's start with the thermometer. You will find a thermometer and usually a white plastic case in your drawer. Please be careful when you pull it out because the top does come off and you can drop the thermometer.
Okay, so I take this thermometer and I stir stuff, right?
No, because you could break the thermometer.
All right, so what you're saying is if I keep stirring stuff, even though I don't know, and I break a couple thermometers, what does that mean? Do I get to buy those thermometers?
You get to buy us some more thermometers.
Oh, cool. All right.
But instead of stirring with a thermometer, let's use the glass stirring rod. This is made for stirring.
It's good.
Okay. My favorite piece of lab equipment. This is called a rubber policeman. And no, I don't know why it's called a rubber policeman. I have even researched it and nobody knows why it's called a rubber policeman. But we use this for scraping out material that we can't get out any other way.
And we use that because it works a lot better than the glass stirring rod.
Excellent. Okay. The last thing in the tray here are our 6 test tubes for running experiments with, which we can use for various things. Be sure and clean those out with the test tube brush after each time you use them.
Okay, now, what are these?
These are called beakers.
And I use these to measure stuff out with, right?
No. We use those for...
Not even a little bit?
Not even a little bit. We use
All
those
right,
for mixing.
So I never use this stuff for measuring stuff, even though it has little lines on there.
Those aren't very accurate.
No.
Those are kind of like guesstimates. Same thing with the Erlenmeyer flaps that you just put up there. Those are just kind of rough estimates of the volumes at those points.
So what am I going to use to measure volume?
Measure. When you need to measure volume, this is what our friends, the graduated cylinders, are for. We keep a 50 milliliter and a 10 milliliter graduated cylinder in each drawer for measuring out liquids.
Okay, so are those real accurate?
Those are much more accurate than this piece of glassware, but there's even more accurate ways of measuring, which we will show you.
And that's specialty stuff.
Specialty stuff that we keep in the back that we don't keep out here because it's very, very expensive for highly accurate volume measurements. All right, so this is a tour of our lab equipment. When you come back to class, you will also tour the drawer and the metal cabinet. And is that it, Mr. Harvey?
That looks like it so far.
Okay.
Aside from
the test tubes?
Well, test tubes and juggling test tubes. Am I allowed to do this? And
juggling test tubes is not allowed. I'm sorry.
Right. And if
you
by accident, if I break something that's glass, what do we do with that? Who picks that up?
Oh, well, you know, we don't want anybody to get hurt. Safety's #1 here. So if you break something, you need to call your teacher and have them clean up the glassware because we don't want you to get hurt.
So this is one of the few times that your teachers are going to clean up after you, when you break glassware. Otherwise, you're responsible for keeping this area extremely neat and extremely clean, and you do get graded on that.
Okay, so when you handle this equipment, you want to be very careful so that it doesn't fall. And because if it should fall, it might break, and then you would have to pay to replace it. Or there's something maybe even a little bit worse.